You're listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
File access granted.
Hello and welcome, all you believers, idealists, skeptics, and all those who question the universe around them. I'm Bailey.
And I'm Ty. And this is Cult Talk Conspiracy. Summer at Sea, the fourth voyage out to sea for us here in our summer-long, all-sea-based event series. It's been a wild ride so far.
Yes, it has. Do you get seasick? Do you get motion sickness?
No, I'm not a seasick person. I haven't been on the water that much though, aside from like lakes. I've never been like out on the ocean much. I think I went on a boat one time in the ocean, but yeah, I as far as I know, I don't get seasick when I'm on lakes and stuff. So
I get really bad motion sickness like in the car, but every time I've been on the water, and it's been years now, I think the last time I was on the water like all the way out there was when we did our Alaskan cruise with my grandparents when I was like 17, and I didn't get seasick then, but as I've gotten older, I've gotten a lot more motion sickness. So I wonder now if I were to go out on the water, if I'd get motion sickness. Well,
those big cruise boats are like pretty stable, right? They're so huge. I don't think they pick up a lot of stuff. I imagine a little speedboat would probably be.
That would be rough. That would probably be rough. On the cruise ship, I remember you really couldn't feel anything until like you laid down to go to bed. Like that's when you would kind of feel like the waves and whatnot. Okay. And that was super cool. I'd love to do that again. That was awesome. Best graduation
always sound
present
cool
ever.
to me. Yeah.
Best grad present ever. Thank you, Papa and Oma.
Nice.
But today we are going to be going out into the deep sea. We're going to be visiting some places. We're going to be making some voyages and ventures, different places, because we are going to be searching for something, Ty.
Okay.
And what we are searching for is a lost civilization.
Ooh.
We are searching for Atlantis.
Nice.
I'm so excited. Did you watch the animated Disney film?
Yeah, just very recently. Milo Thatch. Yeah, Milo Thatch going down to find Atlantis using the Shepherd's Journal.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good movie. I watched that, very recently. I think it was like only a few weeks ago I watched that.
Oh, nice. In honor of this episode.
Yep.
I love it.
That's a movie. It's a movie I watch pretty regularly. I really like that flick. It's like one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I remember watching that movie very, very young and like being captivated by this lost civilization.
Yeah, I had the action figures for that and everything.
Same. I had all the dolls and whatnot and all that. So that was a lot of fun. I loved it. But there is so much on Atlantis and finding Atlantis. It could have turned into a conspiracy pasta. I'm not going to lie to you. And almost went down that route, but we saved it. It came back up, and we have found some very, 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 very recent research that actually came out in this year of 2023 that is proving. I'm going to go ahead and say proving, because like the research we're going to talk about and the specific instance that we're going to talk about today is profound.
Wow.
Not only with the references and the facts that are there, but there's an actual geological structure that is on our Earth that didn't come from outer space. Like it's world made. So like our world created this. Like people on our planet created this, and we're gonna get into it. But like I said, that information came out just last year, or just this year. I'm sorry, just at the beginning of 2023. However, this is a topic that goes all the way back to the BCE eras. So it's like we're talking about Plato and Socrates and Solon, and we're talking about Egyptian priests and everything. So, I mean, there's so much rich history that goes into this. And whenever there's so much rich history that goes into this, there are so many opinions that we have to weed through. So today, I hope I have done a wonderful job of doing that. And I'm just super excited.
Nice. It sounds like it'd be a deep dive.
Truly is.
On the 4th edition of Summer at Sea. We're looking for a lost civilization. You ready to get into it? You ready to dive in?
I'm ready to dive in. Let's go.
All right. Let's do it. Atlantis Rising. The search for a lost civilization.
do you know anything about Plato?
Not too much. I know the mention of like Plato and the Atlantis connection from the movie.
Okay, I'm glad you. Okay, I was really for a second there. I was like, I really hope he's not cute. And it was like, I know you can play with it, like Plato. Like, yeah. Anyway.
I thought about it.
I work with a lot of kids in my 9 to 5, so I'm like, oh man.
I love the smell of Play-Doh.
Ew.
It's a really good smell to
It's
it.
gross.
Oh, I love that smell.
Like when
reminds me of childhood.
Oh, no. When I think of artificial, I think of the scent of Play-Doh. Like it's, I don't like
the
it.
scent of it. I found a set not too long ago at like Target, I think.
Yeah.
It was like the Play-Doh for adults, what it was. And it was like adult scented stuff. So it was like fresh cut grass. I think it was like mimosas, shit like that.
Interesting. Okay, I might be down for some of that. That might be fun.
It was just scented Play-Doh.
I love that.
But I like the OG scent of Play-Doh. I used to use Play-Doh a lot to play Celebrity Deathmatch because I'm a product of the 90s. So I would like build little like celebrities and mash them together. I'd ruin my Play-Doh pretty easily.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We never had Play-Doh in my house because we were messy children and we would destroy carpets and shit with Play-Doh. And I just found out recently that if you take baking soda and Blue Dawn dish soap, all my parents out there, all my dads who are letting the kids play with Play-Doh while mama's at work, you take Blue Dawn dish soap and baking powder and you mix it together and then you set it on the carpet for 2 minutes, only 2 minutes, and then it will like lift the Play-Doh up out of the carpet. It's beautiful. I love it. I was so happy when I found that. I was so happy. It was the best day at work.
We'll learn all kinds of stuff today on this episode.
I know. It's wonderful. Housekeeping tips, ancient civilizations. It's wonderful.
Yep. So
okay, anyway.
Packed episode.
Yes. So anyway, Play-Doh is really like sort of I don't want to say poster child, but technically he is, because like when we think of Atlantis, we think of Plato's depiction and description of Atlantis, because Plato, we'll talk about a little bit about who he is. He was born in 428 or 427, between those 2 years, BCE, in Athens, Greece. He was a Greek philosopher, and he was actually a student of Socrates. And Plato would actually later go on in his life and career to be a teacher of Aristotle, and Aristotle was actually a founder of the academy. So for him to be a student of Socrates was a bit of a big deal, because Socrates was also a Greek philosopher himself who had a huge influence on Western philosophy. He was depicted in compositions as a man of great insights, integrity, and self-mastery. And he also had a lot of argumentative skills as well. Now, the reason he's depicted in different tellings and compositions of him is because Socrates never actually wrote anything. He was a teller. He never actually wrote down any of his findings or any of his beliefs like Aristotle or Plato did. So he told all of his knowledge. And a fun, not so fun fact, but a fact, is he was actually tried and charged of impiety. Impiety is a lack of reverence or deep respect for God. So he was charged with impiety, and he was actually found guilty, and he was sentenced to death by poisoning.
Wow.
So yeah, the Greeks weren't fucking around. They're like, no,
geez.
No. We will put you to death. We will use the aqua tofana. So Plato, our man Plato, he was actually famous for his work and lineage of the Republic, which the Republic, if you don't know, is actually the Roman government at that time. A lot of government and a lot of democracy that we got actually came from the Greek and Roman. But that's a whole other thing. I'm not getting into that other than that little tidbit. But he was most famous for his belief and depiction of the infamous Atlantis. However, one thing that I did not know is that here we go. Here's the damn pronunciations. Here we go. I thought I had it. I really did. I came in confident. So in his works of Tiamos and Critias, Plato would actually describe obtaining the knowledge of Atlantis from Solon. who was at the time a Athenian lawgiver. And Solon was actually told about Atlantis from Egyptian priest. Now, what's interesting about that is not only do the Romans and Egyptians have a very colorful history with one another, all kinds of different history go down there, is that Solon was actually told about Atlantis through those Egyptian priests. And those Egyptian priests were actually talking about the legend of Atlantis 9,000 years prior to Solon ever hearing about it. So we have got super long history that stretches from beyond Plato. So in Plato's description of Atlantis, it was lying west of the Gibraltar. The Pillars of Hercules is what we're going to call them from now on. So they would lie west of the Pillars of Hercules. The island was actually very large itself. It was larger than Libya and Asia combined. So not only is the island huge, you would assume that it also had a massive population as well, with having that much space, or at least in today's culture, that's what we would come to believe. That's what I've come to believe. So the island was rich and powerful, ruled by powerful princes and a royal system. The Atlanteans actually conquered much of the Mediterranean that surrounded them as well. And then after defeating Athens, they would later become allied with Athens, which we're going to get into that in a moment. But just understand that Atlantis did, at one point in its history, start to war. So, and the Atlantean people and rulers, this is just kind of the 50,000 foot overview real quick right before we get into it. So the Atlantean people and their rulers would actually become wicked and selfish. And the story goes that the island was swallowed by the sea as a result of earthquakes. 50,000 foot overview. Wonderful. So like I said, these Egyptian priests we mentioned, they were talking about Atlantis 9,000 years before even the birth of Solon. So some legends even state that Atlantis was punished by the gods for greed and not thanking the gods enough for their wonderful riches and their abundances of materials. The way that Atlantis was structured is it would lay in front and west of the Pillars of Hercules, which would later become known as the Straits of Gilbar. And the inhabitants of Atlantis, all of the people, according to the Egyptian priests that we've been handed down, the inhabitants would become ugly, in which Zeus and the rest of the gods would destroy them by allowing the sea to swallow them whole. Thank you, Poseidon.
Wow.
Because, Zeus, and like a tidbit here is actually Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades are all brothers. So it would make sense that Zeus, the ruler of the gods, and Poseidon would then destroy Atlantis for giving them all of these wonderful riches. And, watching them become a selfish being and watching them become so ugly and unruly. Because a lot of the time, what gets missed with ancient mythology, especially when it's talking about Zeus and even sometimes with Odin and Thor and Freya, is they quest for knowledge. Yes, they quest for strength, and they want to rule and, be good leaders as well, and to be a force to be reckoned with. However, the quest is always for knowledge.
Right.
So that's my TED talk on that.
So they were destroyed for greed, right?
For greed.
They became greed.
For greed, for conquering these other worlds and for wanting to become more powerful and, ceasing that thought of knowledge. And really, I don't want to say, really everything is kind of hypothetical when we're talking about Atlantis in this sense. But I don't want
starting to sound a little bit like another empire I know of that's very similar in their a little scary.
A little scurry here. A little scurry. They just wanted more.
Waves swallowing up United States.
I know. Like they just
a little close to home.
They were kind of becoming the world police, if you catch my drift. We can get some hits on that one.
It's sounding a little familiar.
which is so important why we're talking about it, Tyler. It's
Yeah.
so important. So the people of Atlantis, as we're talking about their demise, let's talk about what the people were actually like here in Atlantis. So the people of Atlantis were very, very, very advanced. So at the time that Atlantis came into creation, this was still during the time when most of the people around the world were still living in the Stone Ages. So they were not building, these huge cities. They weren't, from what we know, able to have not only the technological advances, they were not able to have the archaeological advantages as well with construction and advanced buildings and whatnot. And this also, I should preface, was about 11 to 12,000 years ago. Keep those numbers in mind because that is going to become very, very important later on as we talk a little bit more. So 11 to 12,000 years ago is when we're looking at Atlantis being in existence. So the people there enjoyed at the time an abundance of resources, especially that of metals. There were silvers and golds and notably orcriacum. I don't think that's how you say that.
Close enough, I'm sure.
Orclicame, maybe. I don't know. It's a red gold metal. So it's actually a red gold metal that was an alloy of copper. So like kind of a look-alike. And it was actually used for coin at that time. It was said to be far more valuable than copper because of its gold implements in there. But it was a reddish shade as well. So similar, but not quite. So, in the capital of Atlantis was said to be made into circles. It was actually 6 circles, 3 of land and 3 of sea, and there would have been bridges connecting one circle to the next. So basically what it was this mass of land, and then you had like this river in a circle, and then you'd have a little bridge to get across it, and then you'd have another little circle of land. You'd walk around the land, and then you'd have another circle of water in that. So now we've got, and then it would just kind of continue into 3. So you had 3 circles of water and then 3 circles of land with one sort of mass circle of land in the middle. And that was the capital of Atlantis.
Okay.
Very powerful, very, very advanced as well. So notably, from the depictions that we have of Atlantis, especially in some of the maps that were drawn, is we have these huge stone buildings and stone roads that would require, it would have to require some sort of unknown technology or mechanics that would have to have some sort of hand in placing these stones or building these buildings all the way up. And at this point, we're talking more about like how, like, before I get on a tangent, it's basically like, how did the Egyptians make the pyramids argument here? It's like, how were the people of Atlantis able to build all of these massive structures and these massive buildings as well? Because and here's what's so hard about Atlantis, guys. We haven't found anything. We haven't fucking found it. And it's so annoying because I'm sitting here saying like they have these huge buildings and I'm waiting for someone to be like, I'm waiting for Ty to be like, what huge building, Bailey? I don't know because they haven't found it. And I'm too scared to go underwater. But according to Plato, there were these absolutely monstrous buildings and they were gorgeous, and there's these amazing stone roads, and I mean it was, and like I said, it's almost impossible to think about because the rest of the world at that time were living in the Stone Ages. So the rest of us out here are trying to figure out how do we gain shelter and whatnot, and Atlantis is over here fucking around wanting to go to war instead of spreading knowledge. I just want a roof, man. Just show me how to make a roof. What were we talking about?
Atlantis.
Okay, the people of Atlantis. So in the people of Atlantis, now we come back to their demise. So in a lust for more power and land and resources, the Atlanteans would then declare war on all of those in the Mediterranean. So they're declaring war on their neighbors is the biggest thing here. is they are wanting to conquer the surrounding land around them and to gain more resources, gain more power, and gain more land. Because at the end of the day, if you have resources and land back in that time, and really in any time, you have the power. Like if you're the one in control of that, you have the power over that domain. So the Atlanteans against the Mediterraneans would win. And it's notable that the Atlanteans army or Atlantean navy were no match to their inferior neighbors. So it was easy. So Athens would actually be the only challenge Atlantis could not win, as the would-be conquerors were sent back to their home with no victory against the mighty Athens.
Ooh.
Very interesting.
So Athens had them beat.
Athens had him beat, which is very interesting because Plato is from Athens. We'll talk about it. So this displeased the gods astronomically. The Atlanteans had grown far too powerful and arrogant, so in a single day and a single night, the gods rid them of the earth by earthquakes and flood, never to be discovered again. Until the Eye of Sahara, which was possibly what once was Atlantis. And this is where I get so excited. Oh, I'm so excited because this is where we talk about the geological just phenomena that is the Eye of the Sahara. So have you ever heard of the Eye of the Sahara, Ty?
No, I've never heard of this.
Oh, I'm so excited.
The Eye of the Sahara.
I'm so excited. Let me see if I can find a photo of it because we're going to show our viewers or we're going to show our listeners a photo of it as well because you're not going to believe it. Oh, I forgot to turn my sound off, guys. I'm sorry. So the Eye of the Sahara is actually in, where are you? It's in Sahara, Africa, because Eye of the Sahara. Let me find it here. Here we go. Okay, so this is the Eye of the Sahara.
Okay.
Okay, so you're seeing the Eye of the Sahara. Now we're going to show you.
I think I have seen that before. That impression.
Yes. So that was the Eye of the Sahara. Now this is the depiction of Atlantis next to the Eye of the Sahara.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to let our listeners see that.
Absolutely. It's kind of
that's pretty wild.
When I saw that, I went I dropped my pen. I was like, this is not real. This is not real at all. What is happening? So I do want to shout out a marvelous couple of fellows as well. So the first one I'm going to shout out, his name is Jimmy Corsetti, and he has a beautiful YouTube channel called Bright Insights, and he actually did a wonderful deep dive on the Eye of the Sahara and possibly being the location of the Lost Atlantis. If you'd like to check out that video, that is named Lost Ribbon Map of Atlantis at the Eye of the Sahara, Africa. And that was released about 6 to 7 months ago. So this is our recent, this is our most recent information that we have on the Eye of the Sahara and that being of Atlantis as well. And a lot of Jimmy Corsetti's research actually does fall in line with another famous Atlantean researcher by the name of Randall Carlson, who has done a lot of independent studies and whatnot on different landscapes all around Atlantis, well, all around what would be Atlantis. They've also done a lot of different studies on the soil of where the Eye of the Sahara Desert is, or where the Eye of the Sahara is. And they've also done a lot of carbon dating on rocks, soil, river water. And the way that they do carbon dating, this is as far as I'm going to get into it because this is for people way smarter than I am.
I've never understood the concept of carbon dating.
My dad knows how to do it. Well, not how to do it, but he knows like the ins and outs of it. He's tried to explain it to me, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't connect for me. I'm sorry. But basically, they are able to liquefy a piece of rock, and from that liquid are able to date back the materials and the minerals in that. So it's a really interesting process. just the concept of being able to take a rock and make it into a liquid is pretty interesting to me. But like I said, there's just something in there that does not connect for me. I don't
Yeah.
understand. I think it's like
I can't get
years of knowledge of being like, no, a solid is a solid and a water is a water. Thanks, grade school. So back to our Eye of the Sahara. So the Eye of the Sahara is absolutely amazing. So it stretches about 40 kilometers wide. That's about 24.88 miles, so 25 miles. And it's located in Mutaria.
Where's Mutaria?
Mutaria is in Africa. Okay, it's called the Islamic Republic of Mutaria is what it's called today.
Okay,
so there we are. That's what it is. So the blue eye of the Sahara, or the Richert structure. So the location was actually a landmark by the Gemini astronauts in the 1960s, is how big this piece of land is. And I mean, you can see it from the sky. Like, I don't know how on earth it would look to be like down there, like in the site, if you would be able to tell if like, you would surely be able to tell if you were like standing in the Eye of the Sahara that it goes in circles. I would think.
say so. I would say, yeah, you probably be able to tell by the, the ridge.
Yeah. I would think. Now we need to go. Now, when we go to Bulgaria, we're going to have to make a stop.
Make a pit stop.
We're going to have to make a pit stop. I don't know if it's in the same direction. Probably not, but it'll be fine. But the Gemini astronauts used this as a landmark in the 1960s. And it was actually, they monitored the opening sequences of the Eye of the Sahara. So they were monitoring where those rings were that would have had water in them, is where you could see those openings.
Okay.
So, and then they would later have satellite images taken by the Landsat for info on the size, height, and formations. So starting from the 1960s, we started looking at this. Now today, we have adequate information on what the actual structure is like. And as far as its natural formations, its height, and also its surrounding areas, such as rivers, materials located, minerals located around the area. So geologists actually first believed that the crater was a blow crater that was created by an object from space, so a meteor hitting space, which would make sense. Yeah. That would make sense given that it's multiple circles. And when you think about something like, think about
like the ripple, the impact ripples.
Yeah. Because like if you throw a ball from like a stairwell all the way into sand, like it's going to create kind of a ripple effect just from the vibration.
That's the first thing I would think of too, seeing it. That's why I would.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you would think like there would be nothing else. Like, okay, it's in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Something had to have hit it. But no. It is actually after multiple studies that were done, by the Landsat, it was actually proven wrong when studies conclusively showed that the structure was entirely world made. So our world did this. Earth is beautiful. I love Earth so much. It's so awesome. Stop trying to kill him. So which was a massive discovery as well, but it also proved credence into, could this be the lost site of Atlantis? Here's where we're going to get into our carbon dating. So there were actually rock studies that were done on some of the rocks that were found in the Eye of the Sahara in Mauritania. Yeah. I'm always nervous about pronouncing that one because I want to say Mauritania because of how it's spelled.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mauritania.
That's not the correct way to do it. Mauritania.
When I was watching videos, they were saying Mauritania.
Okay.
So I think, if I'm wrong, someone tell me. So they did this rock study through carbon dating, which we talked about is the liquefying of rocks. So, and what they found is that these rocks actually carbon date all the way back to about 10,000 years ago. So we're in between that 11 and 12,000. We're right in there at that 11 and 12,000 time frame. So we not only that have the structure that fit our time frame, but it also looks exactly like what Plato described with those rings. And what they were also able to do, which is very, very interesting as well, is they were also able to date how long ago the rivers date back to. And this one's a little murky only because I don't like the range of it, is because that dated back to 5 to 11,000 years ago.
Okay.
But like I said, I don't like that range because it's over 6,000 in range, and I'm a realtor. I don't like big ranges like that. I want like 1 or 2 in that range. I don't want 6. But even more interesting is there were also mountain ranges described in the depiction of Atlantis, and these mountain ranges were in a rectangular shape. You know, want to know what's interesting about the Eye of the Sahara?
Let's hear it.
It's got a mountain range.
Really?
In a rectangular fashion beside the Eye of the Sahara. How fucking crazy. I was looking at this and I'm like, you have my attention.
That is wild.
Like this, it's just insane. So it's really, really interesting that we're getting all of this knowledge, but where is it coming from? This knowledge is actually coming from Pomponius Maya. And he was a Roman map maker in what is now a 2,000-year-old map of his origin. So he made this map about 2,000 years ago. We see the words Atlantia or Atlantis on this 2,000-year-old map. And in another map, which has a little bit more muddy origins to it, it also has a section of land called Atlantis. And this map was actually by Herodotus in 430 BCE. So, and then while it's muddy in origin, it still accredits to the Egyptian priests who were telling of Atlantis thousands of years before Salone's telling of it. And also, if you look at the map at the time that the map was made in 430 BCE, that was actually just 3 years after the birth of Plato. So it's kind of interesting how these dates are matching up with one another, because
it's pretty wild.
Because it's like, okay, not only like, because we're, as far as I know, we're not future tellers. So, I mean, unless we have lost that throughout evolution, it's crazy. And I am always so astounded by how amazing how we're able to get these communications over, or how like things kind of pop up and we're able to kind of piece them together throughout dates, because like a lot of these people did not have communication with one another. Salone being able to communicate with Egyptian priests, that was a huge travel. Like, traveling back then was no small feat. Like, it's not like today where, you know, we send a message and it goes out into the ether and then we get it back. Like, it was a huge feat. And it absolutely astonishes me, because the way that we're able to communicate and get information from one another to each other now, as opposed to years and years and years ago, it's amazing. It's a blessing. What's also interesting about the site, more interesting, I should say, is the site of the Eye of the Sahara. Is we talked about a lot of those materials that were found, or that, you know, Atlantis was said to have had: the golds, the copper alloy with the red and gold, the silvers. We talked a lot about that. So there was also a large amount of red and brown dirts found around Mauritania, as well as an abundance of silver, golds, and ivories that were found.
Okay.
Ivories is actually quite interesting, because in some tellings of Atlantis, it was actually said to be home to quite a lot of native elephants, which would match the findings of ivories. And like I said, that's not something you hear all the time when you're talking about Atlantis, is the fact that it had elephants, or was said to have had elephants. So the fact that they're finding ivory in the Eye of the Sahara, like Sahara, Africa. Like,
how big is this? Like, it's like eye. Like, how like,
it's 25 miles wide.
Wow. Okay.
It's big boy. But Atlantis itself, the actual, like, I guess, continent, or what do you call it, a continent of Atlantis?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Maybe. Well, that's what we're going with, because it was said to be as big as Libya and Asia combined. I mean, it's a huge piece. I mean, it's huge. So I'm going to say it was a continent. So we know about these findings. We know about these findings because a lot of gold and silver were actually bought and traded by none other than our good friends, the Europeans. So, hi, how are you? Glad to see you. You came over to conquer another piece of land. Hello. What is also very just wild. We're past the point of interesting. We're now into wild territory. Is Mataria also had a great king named King Atlas. There was also a great king in Atlantis. Anyone want to guess what his name was?
King Atlantis.
King Atlas was.
Close.
It was
close.
super close.
I was trying to be a dick. Yeah.
So this legendary king was actually the first known king of Mataria. So the Atlantic Ocean at one point was actually known as the Sea of Atlas, and Atlas believed in philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy, which would give a lot to the way that Atlantis was said to be so advanced. Is, we're dealing in philosophy, we're dealing in mathematics. A lot of contractors and a lot of people who build have to deal with a lot of measurements and mathematics as well. And then astronomy as well. Astronomy, a lot of the time, is attributed to studies within the gods, as well as knowing your positioning on the earth. So location, map making. There is a lot that goes into astrology. It's absolutely... I'm talking about astrology, and I look down and it says astronomy. Astronomy.
You got excited.
I got really excited whenever we start talking about the stars. I'm like, I'm a flower child. Let me do it. So now that I've gotten my definitions mixed up, we're gonna. Oh, we were close. Astronomy. Oh, this is great. We're gonna talk more about this. So the study of space.
Okay.
The study of space. I was close. We're talking about the stars.
You weren't that far off.
We're good. So what's really cool about Atlas is he was actually attributed to inventing the first celestial sphere, which is a bunch of cosmological models, fixed stars and planets. It's basically a map of the stars and planets. So you can see there is a wonderful statue that you can Google called the Callisto Sphere, and it is Atlas holding the sphere. I'm not going to try that word again. But it relates all the way back to them studying space, them studying the cosmos, where the stars and planets are aligning, and the way that the spheres were made. Like, because you can Google how these actual spheres were made, is they would pinpoint where stars were, basically. And not only would they pinpoint location, it was also a way of finding out kind of how they didn't know it at the time, but they were figuring out the way that the world moved. So they were pinpointing like where stars and planets were fixed and when and where stars and planets would move from on the sphere. So it was like this sort of, have you ever had like one of those like turn papers where it's kind of like a key, like a puzzle key, where you have to like turn all the different papers around, and like there's little holes in it where like you can move different. And they were kind of like that, from what I can see. They're super cool. I really want to look more into them. They're really interesting. But that's what they were into, and that's a lot of what Atlas did, and why he was so legendary as well is, because of the knowledge and because of, the studies upon the cosmos that, of course, would inspire future leaders to, look into. Beautiful, really. Our evidence today of where Atlantis is. So a lot is lost, much like Atlantis actually is. So we really only have what we know from Plato and Solon as like concrete evidence of Atlantis. People will take the tellings from Plato and use those. Whereas I think what we should really be doing is pointing to these maps by Pomponius, who made these maps over 2,000 years ago, and it depicts Atlantia. So my question then becomes like, okay, Plato, that's wonderful, wonderful TED Talk. I'm glad you're here. However, I want to talk to Pomponius and find out why.
So Pomponius is like the guy.
He's like the guy. Like
Okay.
Atlanta or Plato really brought it about, but I feel like we really need to look into these maps that were found that have Atlantis depicted on them. Because a lot of what's happened is kind of like with Pangaea, where people have moved over and because of the Earth's moving and whatnot. Can you tell I don't know a whole lot about Pangaea? My words are slowing down. I'm like, watch what you say here. You're going to sound stupid.
The continental shifting.
The continental shifting. And a lot of that might have been that. And that's probably why we might not see Atlantis and where it was depicted like over 2,000 years ago is because of continental shift of the continent shifting. Also could be how we lost Atlantis as well. There's a theory there is, when we had the earth shifting, was Atlantis just lost in those shifts? So really we take more for fact what Plato theorized about Atlantis, but there has been nothing found on any seafloor that we have researched that would point to a discovery of Atlantis. There have been no ruins. There have been no pots. There have been no structures. There has been nothing that has been attributed to finding Atlantis. However, we got real excited because in 2021 near Japan, there were actually sea steps found, which could have made a huge dent in our search for Atlantis. So in the sea near Japan, there were these beautiful structures that were found that looked like steps. They looked like carved steps that, had been carved out of stone. And a lot of people got really excited because it looked like we'd found Atlantis, or at least a piece of Atlantis there for a second.
Yeah.
However, after multiple studies that had been conducted on the steps, around the steps, how the formation of the steps were to occur, it was actually found that the steps were a natural ocean occurring process. I know. This is why we need to study more of our ocean, guys. Because we could have looked at it and been like, no, that's fine. That's fine. Sharky made that. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. So, have you ever heard of Charles Hapgood?
Never heard of Charles Hapgood.
Charles Hapgood is an interesting fellow.
Doesn't sound familiar to me.
He is an interesting fellow because he also had a theory about Atlantis that also involved the Earth shifting. And he wrote a book in 1958 called The Earth's Shifting Crust. And what he theorized is that Atlantis is actually Antarctica.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he theorized that. And it was actually a foreword from Albert Einstein. So we've got major brains looking at what has happened to Atlantis. So, and I mean, I'm not saying that, Plato's and Socrates and Sloane are not major minds, but Albert Einstein is one of the most recent geniuses of our time. So the fact that he was looking into what could have possibly happened to Atlantis, or even giving a notion to a foreword of what could have happened to Atlantis, is a bit of a big deal to me. Also, I'm a huge Einstein fan. So they theorized about 12,000 years ago, Earth's crust shifted, which would then displace the continent of Atlantis, which we now know as Antarctica. And a lot of that can be attributed to Pangaea and the shifting crust. So with that movement, the frigid temperatures would doom the people and its inhabitants, which would cover the city in a layer of ice and snow, never to be found again after about 12,000 years. Wow. Now, this is very interesting because you remember in the Meg, we talked about some things.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We talked about how
there was some talking.
There was some talking. There was talking in a podcast of ours. You don't say. But there was some talking of how temperatures rising and whatnot could potentially, be melting a lot of the Marianas Trench and a lot in that. So here comes my tinfoil hat, guys. So there may be a theory I'm willing to explore. I'm willing to go to the cold and explore a little bit of Antarctica to see if, Atlantis is down there. Because there's all kinds of shit that's buried all over.
Yeah, you don't know what's down there.
Like, I was just watching a video not too long ago of New York and how New York, one of bunches of subways and whatnot are actually built on top of other subway systems.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely crazy to me.
Chillicothe is like that.
Yes.
Chillicothe is built on top of the old Chillicothe.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. Because there was actually a river that ran through Chillicothe little over 100 years ago now. But
For those who don't know, Chillicothe is where we're from. It's a small town in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. Come visit. We'll say hi. But yeah, what's now Water Street actually used to be water. It was part of, I believe, the Ohio River that came through that then shifted within 100 years. And now we don't have that anymore. So just think about that for a moment. We have something within our own hometown that happened that totally changed the geological structure of our own small town.
Mm-hmm.
How could this not happen with a huge continent such as Atlantis? And I mean, the Antarctic is huge.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that's at least Libya and Asia combined?
It's pretty damn big.
And with the ice and the snow for 12,000 years covering up, building over time and covering it up, and the absolute horrific climate that Antarctica is in, it would be very, very, very plausible to say that Atlantis could possibly be Antarctica. However, since 1958, there has been a lot of research done on the plate tectonic movement within the Earth that would actually later go on to displace Hapgood's theory about Atlantis being Antarctica, or at least being pushed that far to Antarctica. So it kind of puts a little bit of a stinger in the Antarctica theory. However, it does give more credit to the Mortarian theory, where the Eye of the Sahara could potentially be the capital of Atlantis. Especially with all of the materials that were found, with the, structure itself, the age of the structure as well. And I mean, I really want to send a whole bunch of researchers down there. I want to make some big realtor money and just send an entire team down there and be like, go find it. Find it. Stay down there and find it. There's also another theory, and This is a lot less fun.
A lot less fun. Okay.
A lot less fun. But we're going to get into the more fun theory before we get into the less fun theory. And that is, we're going to talk about the Bible. We're going to talk about the Bible.
It is less fun.
It is a little less fun. So you're aware of the story of Noah's Ark, I would imagine.
Yes. Yep.
About how a giant flood swept through I don't know where, I didn't read that part, but giant floods swept through, the land became new again and all that. And it's wonderful. So there are a lot of other stories within civilizations, especially that in Greek and Roman culture as well, and even some in European, that a huge flood did come through, which not only gives a lot of truth into what may have happened in the Bible, it also gives a lot of truth to what may have happened to Atlantis too. So was it not a god that sent the floods? We're talking science. Don't come for me. But what if it was just an earth happening event, like a giant tsunami that swept through the earth. Because at that time, with all of the continents being so close together, it would have made sense that this flood swept through an entire area that would affect all of these ancient civilizations and then would have a catastrophic result as to separating all of the having a hand, I should say, in separating all of the continents. A lot of people believe that what may have happened to Atlantis is a huge tsunami mixed with an earthquake, which can happen. There's a big process in which that can happen. You can look that up by yourself because I no. You guys know I go down a lot of rabbit holes. We don't want to go down that one. But it really raised a lot of questions to me because as I was doing research for this, I was thinking a little bit about Noah's Ark. We don't know when Noah's Ark may have happened. However, it's pretty interesting that the Bible references a huge flood and we have an ancient civilization that was victim to a huge flood.
And the flood is that concept is across a lot of different
absolutely.
I know like the Aztec people, they have a legend of a flood. There's a ton of it. And I think the flood is definitely something that most likely happened at some point in our history.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's just the different cultures having different interpretations of why that was. But I think it's certainly an interesting concept because it is something. It's not just the Bible that has the flood in it. It's crazy that the amount of religions that have a legend of some sort of mass flood.
Absolutely. Which I honestly, in my own opinion, I really do think the flood happened. Like you can't have that many civilizations and cultures and religions that believe that happened and have that many similarities without some of it being some sort of truth. Now I could be totally pulling this out of my own ass and it'd be like, nope, we all made it up. We all had a coup. We made it up. We wanted to trick you all. But the thing about it is like, how do you and like I said, the thing is with communication is different religions and different civilizations, like they would war with one another. Yeah. And I mean, yes, of course you would have those people that, would want to spread the knowledge and would want to, kind of do a collaboration with one another and exchange information and whatnot. So yes, there is something like that could have happened. But for the most part, we did not have communication with one another. It has only been very, 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 very recent that we have started to have this much communication with one another. It's very interesting. So the fact that we have so many similarities between all of these cultures and between all of these religions who would rival against one another, that to me says that there is some sort of truth in this.
Yes, definitely.
So that's that. Everyone should do research into communication. It's absolutely beautiful what we've been able to accomplish, and yet what we still lack as far as communication. We are the most communicative creatures on Earth, and yet we have over half of a civilization. We have so much that is lost into history. Like,
shocking.
It's awful. It's absolutely terrible. Like we should. Egypt is a just astronomical example of how sad that is, that we have lost so much of that information.
Yep.
For whatever reasons. I actually love the fact that Egypt has a law that is against like false information coming out about their historical events.
Yeah.
They don't fuck around. Jada Pinkett Smith found that out.
She did.
She done did.
Good on her.
I mean, it's a lot. It's very, very interesting. But they do that because there is so much that has been lost.
Yeah, you got to retain your history, else you're going to lose it to something.
Yes. Yes. If you don't own your own history and you don't own your own ancestry, you don't know who you are. Like I firmly believe in that. You have to know where you have come from in order to know where you are going.
Yep.
So now we're going to talk about the least fun theory out of all of this. And that was that Plato made it up. Plato made Atlantis up.
It's inevitable. Yeah.
He done made it up. He's a fibber. He is a He is a very, very wise storyteller. But why would he make it up? Why would he make it up?
Why indeed? Why would he make it up?
So
What would he have to gain?
He would have a lot to gain, actually.
Okay.
So he, like I said, he was a very big influence in the Roman Republic, which is the Roman government at that time. So he would actually have used the story of Atlantis to gain political favor and further his political career with not only the Republic, but he would do this through beloved fables told to the public. He was a dreamer. We love Plato. He's a dreamer. He believes in these lost civilizations. He's a dreamer. We love it. So, but like that was a huge thing. In like I've been doing a little bit of research, like coincidentally, not because of this, but like totally coincidental, into Roman history and whatnot. And it was their government was very people based. Like their entertainment was very people based. Like it was very much like they would listen to their crowds. They would listen to the people that they were serving in order to make political decisions and political gains. So for Plato to be like, hey, if I gain the favor of the people through their love and through their imagination and through taking them to different places with this story and giving them a more flowery feel of what our ancestry may have been like, I should say. Could that mean I would gain respect with the Republic? And it did. It worked.
Okay.
So, and we see it all the time. People using, stories and whatnot, and different, political, like people using stories to, gain heartfelt, what do I want to say here? My tongue's moving faster than my brain is. We see it all the time where people tug on the heartstrings of the people and tug on the imagination of the people in order to gain political gain. So what is to say that it would be any different back in 500 BC?
Yeah.
Humans are humans.
I don't see why it would be any different.
Humans are humans. There's a wonderful quote that Greg Hartley from the behavioral panel, we've talked about him before. He says, the organism does what makes the organism successful. So if making up these stories and telling of a lost civilization and having a dream that this lost civilization would be there, and a warning, most importantly, a warning that if you are not kind to your gods and you do not remain thankful to your gods, they will come down and swallow you up in one day and one night. What a beautiful bedtime story. So I think Atlantis is out there. I think it's out there. I have no idea where it is. Not a freaking clue. But if I ever become a billionaire, that's like the one thing I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. We're going to go search for Atlantis. So that is what I got. And like I said, this could have become a huge conspiracy pasta with all of the different information is out there. And I mean, guys, there is so much information out there on Atlantis.
Man, yeah. With Atlantis, there's a ton. I mean,
there's so much.
And there's a lot of different things that kind of thread into it. Like, Bailey, something about becoming a conspiracy pasta because there is different things you can rope into it. I mean, aliens fall into Atlantis. Certain theories.
There were giants. There were giants that were mentioned. Yeah,
giants fall in there.
There were caverns in the Grand Canyon that were found, and basically, like, not really caverns, but they were like these entrances into the Grand Canyon that were found, and it led into these rooms that would like look like living rooms, and one would look up like a bedroom, and they would have like islands in them. So like it looked like somebody's home. But it was way taller. It was way more secluded. So like basically the reason I bring that up is because yes, I looked into it because there was telltale of Atlantis possibly being located in the Grand Canyon. However, it turned out to be more of evidence of giants being in the Grand Canyon. So we're going to put a pin on that. And we're going to come back to that conversation later.
Future episode. Okay.
Future episode. But yes, but that gives more credit into the fact that, yeah, there is a lot of information that gets attributed to Atlantis that is actually a whole other tale in its own. It's a whole other theory in its own. Which, I mean, researchers out there say it's a giant. Don't say it's Atlantis. Say there's giants in the Grand Canyon. I will click on that at the same rate of speed, y'all. Like... But It's beautiful that so many people have such interest in Atlantis and really want to know what happened to this lost civilization. And I think a lot of that comes from, if it can happen to them, can it happen today?
Yes. Yeah.
Can it happen today?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Which is why you must leave offerings for your gods. You must say thank you to your gods. You must always say thank you.
No gods, no masters. That's why. I don't have any time for that stuff.
I don't have time. That ain't time. That ain't time.
Yeah.
But
Man, that's deep dive in there.
It really was. I was like, holy crud. Because like I really wanted to dive into the history of Atlantis. I wanted to find a lot more on what the actual people may have been like. One thing I was very disappointed with, and I understand why, is what kind of technologies they may have had. I could not find a lot on.
Okay.
But I understand why, because like I said, there has not been any evidence of Atlantis that has been concrete found to be tied to Atlantis.
So a lot of it's just speculative stuff.
Lot of it is speculative.
They probably have this or that.
Yeah.
Because I know like a big thing with a lot of Atlantis conspiracies is they had some sort of advanced power system. Like
yes.
they had some sort of like form of electricity or other means of power that we have not yet discovered because it was lost to Atlantis.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's tell of them even having plumbing, like the Mesopotamian people had plumbing as well.
Greek. Didn't the Romans have plumbing as well? Yeah.
Yeah, they had like these
I would imagine maybe that's where they got it from, was from the Atlanteans.
I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, they seem to have a way with water. That's all I'm going to say.
But wow. Deep dive, great little trip out to this lost civilization, Atlantis. It's one of those things, I think it's like been around. The first time I ever heard about Atlantis, I can't remember, because it's one of those things you just hear about, you just know about.
Yeah, it's like
people speculate on it all the time. I mean,
I probably found out about Atlantis about the same time I found out about UFOs, which is like my family and I were like still living in Georgia. I was so young,
okay.
So. Yeah, it's been one of those ones that's up with me that I've always gained interest in. And now looking into it further, I just have even, like I said, the day y'all see Bailey has become a billionaire, just know I am hiring for my Atlantis expedition. You may send all of your applications to the culttalk.gmail because we would all love to see them. Anyway. But that's what I got on the lost civilization of Atlantis. I do hope one day it does get found, if it truly was there.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe it's already been found. We just wouldn't know about it. I mean, the global elite keeping it hidden.
Yep. They do like to hide shit.
They do like to hide stuff. They do.
There was one friend I was talking to. This is a tidbit. We were talking about aliens, and he's like, "This is what the government is hiding." I'm like, "Now you understand." I'm like, "I'm finally got you on my level now. Thank you." So just so everyone knows, I am converting people free of charge. I'm not going to knock on your doors. It'll be fine. You come to me. You come to me when you're ready. We'll talk about it. But I would love to find just something. And there's also debate that if we were to find anything of Atlantis, would we even know if it was from Atlantis? Because all has been so lost. It's like, would we even know what it is that we're looking at? Like if you were to find like a hieroglyph that was from Atlantis that looked totally different, what would you think? Like, oh, fuck.
You'd
have no idea.
I imagine it'd just be like kind of a speculative thing of, trying to figure out where it came from, but trying to route, the origins.
That's why they should carbon date everything that comes out of the earth. You carbon date it and you get with like 87 million people to see what it is. I think
carbon dating is one of those things where it's pretty. They do it quite a bit, right? I mean, they do carbon date quite a bit of stuff. Yeah, I still don't understand quite the carbon dating process, but
we'll have to get my dad on here. We'll have to get my dad.
I've said it many times. You need to get your dad on here.
Would you? He's
a smart guy.
He still works for the government. He's not going to come on until he's retired.
Even better. Yeah, we can grill him and get him to expose some secrets.
I can't tell you how much he enjoys the fact that I don't trust the government while he works for them. It's like, Bailey, like, what? They should know. Give me a reason to trust you. Give me a fucking reason. At least get the post office fixed, and then I'll have some faith in you.
Oh, geez, yeah. That's a mess.
It truly is. Like the government was really only supposed to control like the roads, the post office, and then I think some sort of tax. It may have just been the roads and the post office to begin with. And it's like, bro, you had 2 jobs. You had 2.
Couldn't even get that right.
One job you can run seasonally. Like, let's be real here. So before I go on to tangents about the post office and road construction, let's see what we have coming for you down the pike. Tyler, tell the people what we have.
So next in 2 weeks, here on August 8th, we're coming in August, the 3rd month of our Summer at Sea event. We're almost done. Voyage number 5. I'm going to be breaking down the Philadelphia experiment. I don't know if anyone here has ever heard of the Philadelphia experiment, but it is fascinating, mind-blowing, and maybe it's real, maybe it's not. There's a lot of really interesting stuff that revolves around it.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
It's really, yeah. Speaking of not trusting the government, this might give you a couple more reasons why to question that. But yeah, this is... we're going to be diving into the Philadelphia experiment. I'm really excited for that one. I was going to do that back this month, here in July, because I thought we had an episode on 4th of July. I was like, that'd be a good 4th of July episode.
Yeah.
A little, hey, don't trust your government so much episode. But no, unfortunately, we didn't have one on 4th of July. So like, I'll hold it off. I'll do sounds from the deep instead.
Yeah.
So I held that off for the final month. But yeah, we're almost done with Summer at Sea, and then we're going to be diving right into Culttober. It's crazy. This is going to be we're gearing up for the busiest season of Cult Talk Net.
We're so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be fun stuff. But Summer at Sea, this has been a great little event series.
Yes, I love it.
We've done some really cool stuff, and there's plenty left over to do more. I mean, I'm sure this is something we can make to a yearly thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Even when I was looking at, like, I was like, I got 3 to do. Looking at things, like, there's just so much stuff in the ocean and things revolving around it that just make you really question stuff. So
absolutely,
you question everything.
Yes, before you go into the water, especially.
Before you go into the water, yeah.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. If I will not go that deep into the water. Like I think I used to be at like a hip level. Now I've gotten to a knee level. I'll get down into the water. Now I think I'm just like, if I can't see my feet, I'm not getting in. That's where we're at now. So the Summer at Sea has done me well. But yeah, I'm with you. We could definitely make this a yearly thing, because even through researching these topics, I found stuff that I was kind of like, oh man, that would have been
absolutely. I was like,
but yes, let us know, guys. Let us know if you want this next year as well. That would be wonderful. If you guys have enjoyed.
But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here for Cult Talk Conspiracy Summer at Sea, voyage number 4, Atlantis Rising, the search for the lost civilization. Bailey did a great job on that, so I'm ready for mine. Hope you guys enjoyed, and make sure you guys look at, because there's a ton of stuff you can find about Atlantis. It's one of those conspiracies, just goes deep, and there's just constantly stuff in it.
And like I said, it's a whole freaking history.
It is. It's a whole thing. It really is. It's one of those conspiracies that just goes deeper and deeper. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Make sure you guys follow us at Cult Talk Net across the board: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the things. Make sure you guys check out Cult of Campbell, which comes out Mondays when it releases. It's kind of a free-spirited podcast this time. Just kind of comes out when we feel like putting out an episode, but it will be coming back full force here in Culttober. So keep an eye out for that. Cult of Lore, every first and second Thursday of the month. First and third Thursday of the month.
Yeah.
And you can find really cool video episodes they work really hard on at youtube.com/culttalknet. Mike and I's podcast, American Pie Slices, has wrapped up by now, but you can go and check out all 6 episodes of American Pie Slices if you want to take a nice little warm, nostalgic slice of the 90s.
It's beautiful.
It's right there.
Beautiful.
And that's that was out on the podcast feed, American Pie Slices. Thank you guys for listening. I've been Ty.
And I've been Bailey.
Until next time, question everything before you go into the water.